Hey, what's up guys? UrAvgWarGamer is back with another video of World of Warships. And in this video, I'm going to be taking a look at top 5 most powerful battleships that you can pick and highly recommended in my opinion for this ranked battle season. Well, this is consisting of tier 9 and tier 10 ships, mostly at Silver League and Gold League. So if you're able to get from Bronze League to Silver League, well, you should be playing these battleships, and I would highly recommend these ones out there, which I will be explaining right now. So one thing that you should be keeping in mind that in this ranked battle season, there is a huge spam of these newly released secondary battleships like Libertad or even maybe the Los Andes, its tier 9 tech tree Pan American battleship counterpart. Well, in order to counter that, all you need is one thing, which is speed. You need obviously good guns, which all of these battleships that I will be recommending and explaining have good guns. You have speed, you have survivability in one way or the other. So those battleships are highly recommended if you don't have Libertad, because obviously I will be explaining Libertad at some point in this video. But let's talk about the Bourgogne first, because it is pretty good at long range and can take down even Libertad. The reason why I would Bourgogne, which is a French tier 10 steel resource battleship. Now, one thing that you should be knowing, that if you don't have this battleship, if you haven't bought Bourgogne for steel resource, don't worry, there are some tech tree ships that I will be explaining in a couple of minutes, so keep watch for that. And by the way, if you are new to the channel, please comment, like and subscribe. So why Bourgogne? Bourgogne, one thing that it has is the speed. And speed is extremely valuable in ranked battles, especially in this season, because there's going to be some Libertads that are pushing and making sure that any ship will be in 12.5 kilometer concealment, or at least under Libertad's secondary range, where the Libertad will be able to take those battleships down, or cruisers, or even destroyers down. Well, the speed will manage to just, help you get away from that range. And Bourgogne can do pretty much like that. You have 15% engine boost, maximum speed increase. Your base speed is already 34 knots. Combined with the fact that you have improved engine boost, you will be able to get to 37 to 38 knots. And on top of that, if you make your captain, unlike me, using brisk, which increases the ship speed plus 10%, and using concealment, where you can able to get a lot of value by just syncing it with brisk, because the more concealed you are, the better the brisk value will come along. Well, then you will be able to get Bourgogne up to 40 knots. And especially if you have Filippo Bonio, which is another highly recommended captain on Bourgogne, and it actually helps a lot in deciding whether you should be playing Bourgogne or not in ranked battle. If you have this captain and you have Bourgogne, right, then it is a must play, at least for a couple of battles in ranked battle, because it has this talent. If you get 2 million plus potential damage, especially it activates after every 2 million HP of potential damage, right? I mean, usually you actually be able to get at least one time of this talent activated, which increases the ship speed plus 8%, which will help a lot with its speed, which already gets up to 40 knots, will go up to 44 knots. So you will be actually having a speed similar to like Henry IV, or even some of the destroyers with speed boost. For example, the Shimakaze can go around like 43 or 44 knots, and Bourgogne can do that similarly in a battleship, which is crazy, right? So that's the benefit of having a lot of speed. Now, one more thing that Bourgogne has up for it is the main battery load booster, unlike any other battleship, right? Main battery load booster obviously reduces the reload time by minus 50%. And since the ranked battle have a very small composition of like 6 versus 6, for example, well, you will be easily able to spam some of those reload booster on that poor Libertad who is trying to push. You can always switch to HE because it does not have the best caliber for its tier, only 380mm guns, even though it does have decent Sigma for 12 guns and very, very good shell velocity. The shells are extremely fast. In my opinion, they are very easy to hit on targets. 24.8 kilometer range is extremely good. Don't build it for secondaries, because the secondaries does not have enough men. Not worth it. There are some really good other secondary battleships that I will be explaining later. So Bourgogne with main battery reload booster is awesome. On broadside targets, the AP will also going to smash pretty hard. I mean, if anyone just bow in and just decided to turn out, this main battery reload booster, if you pop it, well, he will be surprised. Because most people will get surprised because the main battery reload buff is going to be minus 50% for 20 seconds because of the consumable action time. So that is a game changer for at least Bourgogne. And that's the reason why I'm picking it at number 5. The reload booster, the speed, it has normal heals, nothing special. But at least it also have one more thing. Against destroyers, that is torpedo belt, which is 44%. It's pretty tanky torpedo belt, so it's also resisting high torpedoes damage. Another extra perk that Bourgogne does have come along with, the concealment can go down to like 13 kilometers, 13-ish kilometers, 13.2, 13.3 kilometers, which is decent. I mean, there are so many other battleships out there, I would say, at this tier, and I will be explaining them later, that have even better concealment than Bourgogne, but it is still relevantly decent. If you talk about anti-defense, I don't think so you should be relying on anti-defense on Bourgogne at all. You must need defensive air fire. At least if you want to think of an AA battleship. A good AA battleship must be having defensive air fire. The base A defense numbers are decent for Bourgogne, but you will be able to shoot down some planes, but he will still be able to get some strikes through without any issues. So yeah, that's where Bourgogne will definitely going to suffer. But the guns are pretty good. If the destroyer gets spotted, the main battery reload booster will come very, very handy. You have really good shell velocity. The dispersion is so good sometimes. I mean, I'm not going to say it's the best dispersion out there, but it is still so good because of the shell velocity that with the main battery reload booster, you can easily able to smash cruisers. And if the Libertad or any ship started to push in, you can always switch to HE pretty easily and can set fires because the fire chance is pretty decent for considering it has very good reload time at 24.6 seconds with reload mod. The fire chance is 36%. And the HE pen is enough that you can able to just if there are some Kremlins out there, you can easily able to penetrate their decks because the Kremlin deck is 60 millimeters. So Bourgogne does not have any issue in just penning their decks, except for the R.Lauria that has some 120 millimeter armor platings at the back of the ship itself. But overall, I think Bourgogne is a really good ship, especially the biggest value that comes from reload booster. This is the one reason. Speed and the main battery reload booster is the one reason why I'm just recommending that. In kiting, it has decent firing angles, so you will be pretty surprised and be happy with the firing angles that it has in kiting. Unlike any other battleship out there, there are some battleships, but I believe that it is pretty decent in kiting and farming battleships and having enough angling. Although the armor does not feel really good, 32mm armor means that I kind of felt like it is sort of a heavy cruiser armor than battleship itself. It will take a lot of HE spam. So if you position yourself, badly, it's going to be a bit of a problem. Although its citadel is extremely protected. Like, you almost never be able to get citadel in Bourgogne. And another big reason why Bourgogne is pretty good as well, apart from the speed boost and reload booster. Like, your armor is such that you won't be getting citadel, okay? And these are all the things that I say about the Bourgogne that makes it worthy, still worthy in ranked battles, at number 5 at least, although there are some battleships that I will be explaining which are a lot better than Bourgogne, somehow. At number 4, I will be recommending the St.Vincent, which is a tech-free British battleship, and I would say it's extremely powerful in ranked battles. Definitely, you should try St.Vincent if possible. Now, the reason why St.Vincent is a great option and good pick is, first of all, you have not like lower caliber guns like Bourgogne. You have 457mm guns, but only 9 of them. But the thing about these guns are that you can simply able to overmatch a lot of cruisers at tier 10 because of this overmatch of 30mm plating. This is a huge advantage when you are playing in ranked battles. Another huge advantage is also the speed. Just like Bourgogne, as I said, you also still have an engine boost, even though it's 8% rather than 15%, and also you have defensive air fire. So just like I said before, you're gonna be pretty good against carriers once you started to have a defensive wave fire for a battleship. And St.Vincent does deliver that pretty well. With defensive wave fire and your good base defense numbers, you will be able to fend off some CV strikes. Like maybe the CV will be able to take down a lot of losses of planes because of this defensive fire. So it's pretty good, at least in that regard. Compared to Bourgogne, speed boost obviously helps to see it, like the speed will go up to like 37 knots, which is really nice. It's not gonna be like 41, 42 knots like Bourgogne, but still it's really, really decent. You are pretty fast. You have, unlike Bourgogne, super heals. Now, super heals literally means that any of the HE spam that Bourgogne cannot tank well if it gets a lot of permanent fires, which usually will happen because if there's a destroyer that is going to be farming you in smoke or cruiser that is going to be farming in smoke, well, the St.Vincent will sort of be able to mitigate a huge part of that fire damage simply because you can just heal back 100% of that. Your HP that you can heal is pretty impressive with this super heal. Although the cooldown time, unlike other battleship like Conqueror, it's actually a bit higher at 100 seconds. It's actually a nerf that they have done recently on the St.Vincent, like a couple of months ago, if I'm not wrong. Maybe a year or so. The reason why? Because it's too tanky. Because of the super heal, okay? And well, that's the reason why you should be picking St.Vincent. The guns are extremely good. It has 1.6 Sigma, but instead of having a normal battleship dispersion, it has battle cruiser dispersion. So 1.6 Sigma might look like not that good, but then you just put the you put the dispersion, which is a battle cruiser one, which is smaller dispersion ellipse than battleship itself, helps a lot, making St.Vincent guns a lot much more reliable and accurate even than Bourgogne sometimes. Because Bourgogne have like 12 guns, but bad dispersion overall, at least compared to St.Vincent. So that does help a lot. As I said, you have defensive fire, you have speed boost, but you also come up with something which is very unique, unlike any other battleship in this game and in this whole numbers that I'm going to be explaining of other battleships, and that is the torpedoes. You have torpedoes in a battleship, and well, you can say that there are battleships like Schlieffen, maybe either some other battleships like Mecklenburg that have torpedoes. Well, St.Vincent have torpedoes that you can just shoot like this. If anything pushes you, you can actually able to just, these torpedoes have such mechanics that they can just turn towards the, left or right, depending upon where do you shoot, and you can able to get that single torpedo, which have 30,000 damage almost, which is crazy, right? Well, against bow-in targets, this is amazing. You don't need to show broadside. The torpedoes have such mechanics that it will just straight up onto the bow-in target without just, able to show broadside on a battleship itself. Extremely good. This thing is very good in pushing situation. And in kiting, I haven't even talked about the guns. AP having extremely good penetration. It has short fuse AP, which means any cruiser that is broadsiding, any light cruiser that is broadsiding, most likely going to get citadels, because any cruiser that have less armor, you're not going to get those guns over penetrated because of the problem of long fuse. The short fuse makes sure that the light cruisers will easily able to get citadel, and you are not going to get overpens, at least on them, okay? Which is a really good thing. And you do have really good accuracy, and the fires that you can spam with these guns, like the fire chance of these guns is 63%, which is insane. This fire chance is actually on Thunder as well. And Thunder got removed because it has really good alpha on the HE shells as well as absurd fires. But somehow they managed to make the HE shells alpha damage pretty low at 7,100, which is still, I would say, pretty relevant. But you still have retained the fire chance, which is 63%. So these 9 of the shells, if they hit a target, having a fire chance of 63%. And the fire chance will get reduced because of the fire resistance at tier 10, which is 50%. But still, it's really, really good. And with this amount of spam with the shells that you can throw on a battleship, you will get multiple fires if it's angled. And if there's a cruiser, you can always switch to AP and you just get simple pen damage because of the overmatch. Really good pick. The only thing of the St.Vincent is why that it's at number 4 is that it's unlike anything else. Like, it does have only torpedoes going for it. It does not have secondaries. No good secondaries. The heel slightly can be trollish because its loading time is now a lot worse than other battleships out there that I will be explaining in this video. 100-second cooldown time is definitely going to be a bit on the higher side. You have only torpedoes going for it when you are pushing, so nothing else beyond that. No secondary power whatsoever. So this is something that you should be keeping in mind. So you can play kind of like Bourgogne overall, but the firing range is also a bit on the lacking side at 20.5 kilometers, so you should be keeping in mind. But still, overall, it's a good battleship that might be a bit wonkier in turning circle, but I would still say with the consumer that it has at 13.1 kilometers, slightly better than Bourgogne, it's gonna be pretty good. And it's definitely worth it. You should be playing it in a ranked battle and just give me the feedback. How did you like St.Vincent in that ranked battles? At number 3, we have Ohio that I would highly recommend, which is a Research Bureau points Tier 10 battleship. Now you can buy it in Research Bureau for Research Bureau points, and Ohio is really still amazing and extremely strong at number 3 for me. Now, why I would recommend Ohio? First of all, the guns. The guns are really accurate. It has 2.0 Sigma, even though it's still going to retain battleship dispersion, but again, because it's an American battleship, it comes up with this slot of artillery plotting room mod 2, reducing its dispersion from normally to -7% to 11%, helping dispersion a lot much more consistent with 2.0 Sigma. And again, just like St.Vincent, it has 457mm guns, which means you can simply overmatch cruisers. And by the way, the HE shells are no joke. I mean, I haven't talked about, or I would say there are not a whole lot of players that really realize the power of the HE shells that Ohio really has. And I would say try to use it, if possible, these HE shells on angled battleships, and you will be surprised at how good these shells are. And the accuracy helps a lot with a fire chance of 43%. The guns are pretty good. The AP penetration is amazing. The firing range is pretty decent, considering it's a brawler. It's a brawler for a reason, but still it have really good HE shell penetration. Guns are pretty good. It has spotter plane. It has repair party. Now, repair party is unlike any other battleship right now. It has a cooldown of 40 seconds. So the heals, unlike St.Vincent, that takes like crazy long time to just heal back again, Ohio will just quickly able to heal back like crazy. You able to just simply use the heal, and the heal will come back after 38 seconds with my build, and then you will get the heal back. And so you have this very good survivability coming in handy. And then you also have this American DCP. So if you're able to have this thing, damage control party mod 1, which increases the consumable action time of damage control party by plus 40%, increasing this consumable action time to more than 30 seconds, you are going to be pretty much immune to fires and floods for that much time, making Ohio extremely good in pushing with the heals, faster heals that you have. Well, the guns are pretty good and accurate, like with 2.0 Sigma. The range is pretty good, just like I said. It has spotter plane, it has also a fighter plane, but it also have good secondaries. Secondaries can go up to 11.3 kilometer if you fully build for it. And the base dispersion is enough that if you get this secondary battery mod 1 at slot 3 upgrade, and with the signal and with the Halsey, only if you get this long range battery secondary shells, whatever you call it, if you increase the range enough with that accuracy or at slot 3, you will find Ohio to be extremely good in setting fires, because the fire chance of these secondaries is 9%. And since you have a lot of shells, secondary shells coming out in 3.3 seconds, you will see that at close quarters, you will get a lot of fires on battleship that is you are trying to brawl. So that is pretty nice. Anti-defense is also pretty decent. The base anti-defense is at least better than Bourgogne and Saint.Vincent, but it does not have access to defensive AFI. And as I said before, defensive AFI just gives a huge advantage, and Ohio does not have that. At least that's one downside. The maneuverability is also another downside. Only 28 knots, and I think out of Saint.Vincent and Bourgogne, this, or maybe even other battleships that I will be explaining later, this is one of the battleships that is the slowest out of all. Even if you get the speed flag, you can get up to only barely 30 knots. This is the huge disadvantage that I felt on Ohio. Other than that, Ohio is a beast of a battleship. Your survivability with the very fast cooldown on heals is really good. And then if you have Halsey, you know, Confederate will just give you so much value for that battleship, giving that juicy improved reload time of minus 20% is so good. Yeah, and even if I talked about the armor, it is also pretty impressive. 38mm deck and side means that any light cruiser will not going to be able to penetrate you at all. So the only issues that you will be having is going to be heavy cruisers, the Jinan, and maybe the Smolensk that will be typical suspects at ranked battles will not be able to penetrate this armor. So this is extremely good. So overall, I would still say that you should pick Ohio over the Saint.Vincent and Bourgogne, because with the secondaries that it has, which is still a really good bonus, even though it does not have really good penetration at 21mm only, you will still going to have amazing time in this ship. It's just you have to be understanding that the destroyers are going to be a problem, not for only Ohio because of the slow speed, but also for any other battleship like maybe even the Libertad itself. So yeah, this is where Ohio definitely suffers because of the slow speed, but overall, really good battleship at this tier and worthy to pick for ranked battles. I have seen so many Colombos in ranked battle season, especially this one, for a reason. Why? Because Colombo actually have gotten some buffs recently. Not only with the angling, or I would say the firing angles of the guns itself, there is 16 of them in this ship, but also it gets the dispersion improvement with improved range finders. This legendary mod is a game changer for Colombo. I would never have recommended Colombo before the buffs that it have gotten recently, and with the legendary mod, I would never have recommended the Colombo. But with this legendary mod and the recent buff of 1.6 sigma increase and the dispersion improvement that you can have with a legendary mod, Colombo becomes a nightmare for these pushing Libertads or any other even battleship out there, simply because the accuracy is pretty now devastating. You have 16 guns. The dispersion cannot be like comparable to the Ohio shells. Ohio shells are only 8 of them, but Colombo have double the amount of shells. And also, it has the most broken ammo in the game, the SAP shells. Semi-armor piercing shells really does not care about good angling. If you are good angled, the SAP will just absolutely smash you. And you can just clearly able to do more than 20k consistently with this battleship. And I'm not joking, right? You can always have a 16 shells loaded on a broadside battleship or a cruiser, and it will have extremely bad time against Colombo, because it is that good with this accuracy buff, man. The reload time might not be impressive at only 32.6 seconds. It gets a bit worse with legendary mod, but I would say the dispersion improvement is just amazing. Another good thing about the Colombo itself is also that it has exhaust smoke generator, which is like typical of all the Italian ships in the game, and this battleship really needed it in ranked battles. Simply because if you smoke up yourself, you will be able to disengage from the massive firepower, and especially if you don't have DCB ready, this smoke will be amazing. You cannot get it in R.Lauria, which is a Tech 3, not the Tech 3, which is a steel resource Italian battleship that has 457mm guns, really high caliber guns, but it does not have access to the smoke, even though the dispersion is really good for 8 guns that it has. I will explain that later in the honorable mentions. But Colombo, I would say, is better than R.Lauria, in my opinion. Simply because of the guns. Your dispersion improvement is so good that it just makes it even more worthier over R.Lauria. You can always switch to AP if you want to, even though it's only 381mm guns. Like Bourgogne, the speed might not be the best at 31.1 knots, but then again, you have a disengaging power which is with exhaust smoke generator, so you should be fine. Your anti-defense is again also actually the worst out of all battleships out there, and actually really bad considering it only consists of having 4.6 kilometer firing range, which I would say is really bad at tier 10. And with the numbers that it has, you will never be able to do anything about aircraft carriers at tier 10 whatsoever. So the only way of disengaging yourself is smoke, which comes so much handy along with the spotting aircraft. Now, for example, if you're able to have legendary captain, which is a must if you're playing Colombo in ranked battles, it's a must captain. The Luigi Cincinnati is a must on Colombo. I don't have it, I have put it on Venezia, but if you like to play Colombo in ranked battles, that guy is a must on that ship, on this ship. So spotting aircraft does help a lot. You increase the range from 18.9 kilometer range up to like 21 point something kilometers, which is really good. Like it can get up to like 22 kilometers if I'm not wrong. So spotter plane is extremely important. You can always pick the spotter plane mod 1, increasing the time of spotting aircraft itself. Very, very important. Overall, the armor is also pretty tankier. I mean, you cannot underestimate the armor. I have not seen Colombos getting citadeled, honestly. The armor is also pretty tanky. 50mm armor, only going to get penetrated by heavy cruisers, HE shells. So yeah, that's where it's going to be pretty decent. It also have a side armor of 70mm, so it's a lot tankier even against those heavy cruiser HE shells as well. So there are so many things, especially the guns, that makes Colombo interesting. I mean, this is the only battleship that I would say is actually really, really good, along with Libertad and Ohio, that you should be playing in ranked battles. This ship will never gonna be disappointing you with the legendary mod. So if you have it, please buy it. It's really good. Buy the legendary mod, by the way. It's really good, and it is definitely a good pick at number 2. It shouldn't be a surprise, because Libertad is the number 1 battleship for this ranked battle season. This battleship is ridiculous right now. Libertad is a Pan-American newly released Tech 3 battleship, and this battleship is kind of bonkers. It has really good guns, 419mm guns. The AP Alpha is not the best, but then you have 12 guns. It does have 1.7 Sigma and a battleship dispersion, which can be a bit disappointing, but again, that's not something that I want to talk about the Libertad. The reason why this Libertad spam is so much insanely high at ranked battles is because look at these guns. These guns that you are looking at, 10 of them on each side, are basically like you're putting a Goliath almost, which is a tier 10 Tech 3 cruiser, guns on each side. These guys are literally cruiser caliber guns, larger cruiser caliber 234mm guns. It has insane penetration, insane alpha damage, insane fire chance, and its reload time is just like under 10 seconds. It's crazy. How can you give a cruiser on each side? It's like a cruiser strapped on each side, and then you have battleship guns on top of that, even though it does not have overmatch of 30mm. But again, if you're able to somehow manage to get a bow-in battleship out there, considering that battleship, you will be easily able to farm it within like couple of minutes. These HE shells, these 234mm HE shell will just absolutely going to pen everywhere. 59mm penetration is enough for almost all battleships in the game, except for the Kremlin. But still, a lot of the shells will hit onto the superstructure, and these secondary batteries with this will set ton of fires. And I haven't even talked about the survivability decent torpedo protection. It's not like the best, but it's not worse either. The HP is also okay. But here's the thing. As I said, secondaries is the star of the show of the Libertad. And the F keys also is kind of bonkers. You have secondary firing range that increases once you have the F key ready. And F key ready is pretty easy. You just need to tank some of the Colombo sap shells, which you can do it because it has insane maneuverability. Like Colombo does have the good opportunity in taking down Libertad, but again, it has increased acceleration. Like it has British style acceleration on this battleship out there. Your maneuverability is great. You turn like crazy, and your acceleration is so good that you can able to speed juke shells effectively, resulting in tanking a lot of potential damage. And potential damage tanking means that you will be able to get this F key loading up pretty quickly. And also, if you're able to hit some main battery shells, well, it will increase even further. And if you get the F key ready, you will getting secondary battery firing range, secondary battery reload time buff, secondary battery damage buff as well. Like this battery damage, it will go like 4000 alpha damage once you are using the F key. So the pen that you are getting on those battleship is insane. I don't understand how good, like why they have given so good maneuverability to a battleship that it gets to the cruiser levels. And you can see here, this rudder shift time and turning circle is very comparable to that of Yoshino. And Yoshino is a heavy cruiser. You can even maybe argue that it's somewhere a bit better than, for example, like Russian heavy cruisers like Stalingrad, Moskva, and they don't have increased acceleration, right? So Libertad is really good. You can see here, there is not an acceleration mod because it already has built in to that. So just you can simply use damage control mod 2 or even maybe steering gears mod 1 if you want to get insane rudder shift on that battleship. Your concealment can go down to like 13 kilometers and your firing range is 12.5 kilometers with secondaries. If I can show you here, yeah, there it is. So you can see here, 12.5 kilometer range. You can increase it up to like 15 kilometers with this secondary battery firing range. Once you have the F key running, this ship has a lot of things going for it. And I haven't even talked about the Lisboa captain, the legendary captain of that guy. I haven't even talked about that. It increases so much things of the Libertad. Your secondary buff is minus 22.5% once you get 170 main battery or secondary battery hits, making this secondary reload time down to what? This will go down to like 8 or 7 seconds. And I'm talking about the cruiser guns that it has, like Goliath guns specifically, like 234mm guns. Let me show you the Goliath quickly so you can understand what I'm talking about. Look at the secondaries. Look at the main battery, It has 234mm main battery guns, but on Libertad, those are secondaries. The main battery of Goliath, it's almost having the similar characteristics, except for the fire chance that it has like 24%, but on Libertad it has 21%. Apart from that, you are just strapping literally the secondaries, the cruiser on the sides of Libertad, which is, I don't understand. Range is okay, considering it's a secondary battleship, and once you push in, you press the F key, once it gets ready, you will just ham on anything out there that is pushing you or just even running away within 12.5 kilometers. You just play it for yourself and you will find out how absolutely bonkers this ship is. And I haven't even talked about the heals. The heals are normal, but their cooldown time is really good at almost 55 seconds. It has 60 seconds of cooldown time. Now this is something which makes it so much tanky and survivable for a secondary battleship, right? Your armor, I haven't even talked about that. So much tanky armor. A lot of the shells will literally going to bounce. The superstructure is small, even though you are having 32mm bow inside, and it is sort of a bit vulnerable against Yamato shells because once it gets overmatches, the Citadel is a bit vulnerable and you will be able to get Citadel pretty much easily. especially if you hit onto the onto the booty of this Libertad. That's what I actually felt when I have fought against Libertad, and I actually able to kill this guy by hitting onto this booty, and you are getting consistent citadels. So that's one of the things that is a bit of a weakness, but again, most of the time it will never happen. So yeah, Libertad, in my personal opinion, is gonna be for really, really powerful rank battle pick, and it is at number 1. I will be explaining a couple of more ships out there. For example, let me show you. In honorable mentions, obviously, I would say Wisconsin is a really, really good pick as well. The accuracy of the Wisconsin is unlike anything in the game. In fact, it's one of the most accurate 406mm guns in this entire game. 2.0 Sigma, battle cruiser dispersion. The guns, it has also an F key, like you found on the Pan American ships. Like F key just reduces the main battery load time, like the Bourgogne. And you also have this consumable preparation and reload time minus 80%, like on the San Martin, which is a really big gimmick in itself, and especially placed at tier 10 for San Martin line. Those Pan American cruisers out there. Well, it has the gimmicks of both nations, for the French as well as for the Pan American ships. On Wisconsin, on an American ship. So Wisconsin has that going for it. You also have a spotter plane that works like eye in the sky. You have short action time but also short cooldown time, which is a lot better than other spotting aircraft in the game. Defensive air fire, which is crazy. I think I haven't even talked about the Libertad. It has really bad AA against carriers. Actually, it's gonna have a lot of issues. But apart from that, Libertad is awesome. But Wisconsin also not going to have this sort of weakness. The AA is actually extremely powerful with defensive air fire. You have 5 heals. Your F key will just load these consumables extremely quicker. It's almost like Ohio levels of quicker, even better than that. If you able to just utilize 1 heal and then you press the F button, you get your heal back in 15 seconds. Your DCP gets back in 15 seconds. It's crazy. Your hit points is decent. Not the best, but it's not the worst either. But with the F key, you will be able to heal back so much. You have improved American healing potential like you find on Montana, Iowa, and North Carolina, which is great. And overall, it's a really good package with really good concealment at 12.9. Really good honorable mention. Now, the reason why I didn't put it at top 5, simply because there are a lot of players that might not have this ship because it's a Dockyard event ship, and Dockyard is gone like 4 or 5 months ago, so you won't be able to have it, and that's why I just put it as honorable mention. If you guys have this ship, it's a good ship. Like comparable, you can compare it to like Colombo at some level, because it is that good. Another good ship that is worthy of mentioning is the Italian steel resource battleship R.Lauria. Now, R.Lauria is kind of works like Colombo, but again, it has way better caliber than Colombo. It has a lot of SAP Alpha at 16.600, which is crazy. You have really good armor penetration with SAP shells at 114mm. You can overmatch cruisers with these SAP shells, so it just completely negates the angling, and you will just do direct SAP damage. It's absolutely crazy. Torpedo protection is also way better than most other battleships out there. It's very comparable to Montana at 39%, which is pretty good. And the fact is that if you want to put Luigi Cincinnati, which is highly recommended captain, you can easily do that because it's kind of works like premium or freemium battleship. It's available for steel, so you can understand why. Anti-defense is again pretty terrible like Colombo. I don't want to comment on that. It's pretty bad. Maneuverability is actually better than most other battleships out there. If you put the brisk skill, which I have put on that, you can get it up to 40 knots of speed with concealment of 12.3 kilometers. So the guns, the armor that I haven't even talked about, the armor is kind of ridiculous. I mean, if you would have this armor which is 120mm armor. It's probably the most tankier armor battleship in this entire game. It's still one of the tankier armor battleship in this entire game, maybe except for the Kremlin. But look at the armor scheme here. 120mm means that even some of the HE shells like Conqueror will not be able to penetrate this armor. It's that tanky. 120mm here. Some of the armor is also 170 and 200mm, so it's good. Now, unlike Colombo, it will be citadeled. It has definitely a citadel armor out there. Look at that. This is a big citadel armor, so definitely raised above waterline quite a lot. So this is something that you should be keeping in mind. Colombo is a bit Colombo, I would say, is a lot difficult compared to R.Lauria. So that's one thing that you should be keeping in mind. It has good Sigma value at 1.8 with battlecruiser dispersion, so the dispersion is amazing. But still, somehow I felt that it's not really good compared to Colombo, simply because of the amount of the accuracy that Colombo now have gotten over the R.Lauria. You only have 8 guns, so it kind of felt like a bit meh, I would say. It does not have access to smoke, so these are some things that I would say making it a bit like onto the back foot compared to Colombo. And you can just play it out for yourself. It's not a bad ship at all. It's actually a good ship, and that's why I'm putting it in honorable mentions. So here it all is. I'm quite sure there's also going to be some other ships out there, but these are my personal picks and opinions upon these ships. So please let me know in the comments, which ships are you going to be playing in this rank battles, and what do you think are really good pick? Did I miss something? Please let me know in the comments, and I will catch you guys into the next one. Peace out.